Okay, welcome to the first Rhino video for 243. What I'm going to do for this video is run through the interface and some of the settings that you might want to change, and just the basic idea of how Rhino works. So here it is. This is probably similar to what your screen looks like. Your command bar may be actually at the top of your screen. I can show you how to change that. And you usually get this startup template, and what this lets you do is basically choose the basic template you want to start with as far as size and units. And so if you were, for example, going to design a chair, which is what the assignment is, then you would first of all click on small objects and inches, and then you would see this description here that says use this template for something the size of a truck or smaller, and so that would certainly be a chair. And then the significance of this inches means that if you don't enter a unit, what's it going to default to? So if you had it on feet and you entered 24 in the command line, you would get 24 feet. If you have it on inches, you'll get 24 inches. So I'll just say OK or open. And here's what you get. You get 4 viewports: top, front, right, and perspective. You get your command or your toolbar up here, some more toolbars here. These can be dragged around by clicking here and dragging them out, dragging them back. Also, your command line may actually be up there. I typically like to have it at the bottom because that's where it defaults to in AutoCAD. That's a program that I've grown used to, and I find it to be a nice location for it. Also, your object snaps, this bar right here, may not be on. You can turn them on or off in visibility by clicking object snap. These are essential, and I would always have these. I would always have those there, and they may default to a position over here. So they may actually end up over here somehow. I'm never quite sure why they do that, and it may just be my machine when I first start Rhino, but you can see you can pretty much drag these anywhere. And then this can be useful, but I typically will close it down. It's just contextual help. So if I were to start the line command, then the line help pops up. So I don't really like that. It takes up valuable real estate, screen real estate, so I'm just going to close it. And then you have your toolbars here. This is very similar to AutoCAD, particularly the AutoCADs before the ribbon was introduced, or if you're working in AutoCAD Classic Workspace. But if you're not familiar with that, basically these are your different commands. They are also accessible through your menu system up here. And you can also add toolbars by right-clicking anywhere, as long as it's not on a toolbar, but anywhere there's blank space, and say, you can add any of these that you want. So you might add dimension if you wanted to add dimensioning to your object. So to run through the basic interface, you have the File menu, Edit menu. Those are pretty typical. View. And then you have these curve, surface, solid, and mesh. And so the way to think about this is that you're sort of from left to right building up in complexity. So curve, this means it doesn't even have to be curved. It can be a straight line. But it basically means line work. And so they really could have called this line work. Surface is the next step up in complexity, and you're talking about just surfaces, mostly planes or curved surfaces. And then solids are the next, and so they are extruded surfaces basically, or extruded line work, and can be things like cylinders, spheres, cones, boxes, etc. So those are some of the basic, that's the way to think about it, is that with curves you have lines, with surfaces you have planes, and you can like extrude this curve straight, and so then over here you have now a plane, and you can see these things called isocurves on that plane. We'll talk about those to a greater extent. And then with solids, you have things like boxes. You can see kind of how my views all reflect the same model, but in different views. And so I'm going to change this to rendered for a second by right-clicking here. So you can kind of see how that works. And in rendered view, line work doesn't show up. So let's go back to wireframe. One more thing to change before you get started working on projects in Rhino that I would recommend is clicking on Options, going to Modeling Aids, expanding it, selecting Nudge, and changing this from, this is the default, and this is the setting that I would recommend. Basically what it lets you do is nudge objects back and forth by just using your arrow keys, up, down, left, and right. And that can be incredibly useful. I'm going to set it to here, which is what you should set it to. And again, this is under Nudge, under Modeling Aids. Say OK. And we were in Options, which is right here. And you can also just type in Options. That's one of the things that's nice about Rhino. And you get back to Options. So one of the nice things about Nudge is that you can select something, and then using just my arrow keys, I can nudge it a given amount of space. If I hold down Shift, I nudge it more. If I hold down Control and hit the arrow keys, I move it less. So Control decreases your movement each time, Shift increases. So one final thing that I'll point out about Rhino that I will talk about more, but I want to introduce it now, is that you do have this command line. And so in addition to going up and saying line, single line, you can see it actually entered the command line. So one nice thing about Rhino that I'll mention is that you have this command line down here. And we'll talk about this more, of course, but I want to point out that if I were to go up here to curve and say line and say single line, it actually enters the command for you line. It does it with an underscore because that's just the way that it works if you're going from a menu. But I could also hit escape, exit the command, and I could type in line, and it would, I could hit enter, and I actually get the same command by typing it in as I do by going to the menu. And so the other thing that's nice is that if I hit L, then I get all the commands that start with L. I hit I, now I'm refining my search, N, refining it even more, E, and there's still some more. And you can actually just go down here and click on them and say line through point. And so then you'd select 2 points and you'd get a line through those 2 points. So that's using the command line, and I'm going to do a lot of that in this. And I think that it's a pretty useful and quick way of entering commands and working in Rhino. So I'd recommend that you familiarize yourself more with the useful commands that you use often than you do with the menu systems, although menu systems can be a good place to start.